מסכת מנחות, page 103. We are the Mishnah. The din that the first subject we're going to discuss is minchat nedava, a voluntarily meal offering. If someone brought it not in the way that the Torah instructed the person to do. Harei alai mincha minas orim yavi minachitim. So the Torah tells us clearly that when it's come to the mincha offering, it has to be wheat. The Torah does not provide for a voluntarily mincha offering from barley flour. If you zoom in the text, you see that the only personal offering that it's ever brought from barley flour is the minchat knaot, the jealousy mincha. But this is only brought by a situation like a sotah. That's it's part of the requirement. It's not a voluntary act. So a personal vow can only take effect in regards to a chitim, to wheat flour, and he must therefore bring mincha from the wheat flour. The reason that his vow obligates him to bring any mincha at all is that it's very possible that this person's primary intention was to bring mincha, but he mistakenly assumed that he had an option to offering a barley mincha, so therefore he chose to vow that type. He had known, however, that this option was not open to him. He will have accepted upon himself a wheat mincha, since his primary concern is uttering this vow to obligate himself to offer an acceptable mincha, not specifically a barley one. That's the way Tosfot Yom Tov, which also bring the Tosfot Dibor Matchil Hamani. However, since it's not certain that this was his lucid, clear, unambiguous intention, the obligation to bring a wheat mincha applies only if upon baking. He stated that he had known that there is no such thing as a voluntary mincha offering from barley. You will have vow instead to bring one from wheat. If he has assert, however, that had he known he will not have vow to bring any mincha offerings whatsoever, he is exempt from any obligation. You're going to see it later on in the daf. הרי על המנחה מן השעורים יביא מן החיטים קמח, if he said coarse flour, יביא סולת, he must bring fine flour. A voluntarily mincha must always be brought from solid, from fine flour, because that's the Torah said in Leviticus chapter 2, the first pasuk. בלא שמן ולבונה יביא מה שמן ולבונה. Without oil and frankincense, he must bring oil and frankincense. A voluntarily mincha is never offered without oil and levona. חצי יסרון יביא יסרון שלם, half of an ysaron. So he needs to bring 400. The Gemara on page 89 derives the notion that mincha must contain a minimum of an isaron, 1/10 of a fa of flour. Isaron umechza, yavi shnaim, he must bring 2. If he vows to bring an isaron and a half for mincha, he must bring 2 isronim. A mincha can be bought only in multiplies of an isaron. That's what we learn in the view of Zeiri. Rabbi Shimon poter shlo yitnadev kederech hamitnadvim. Rabbi Shimon exempts him because he did not donate in the manner of those who donates. He maintains that the person's words are interpreted primary by their conclusion, and since he concludes his vow with a non-binding specification, so the entire vow does not take effect. You see it later on from Rav Amram Gaon. Anyway, Gemara. So the Gemara challenged the view of Tanakama And they said, Amai, why is the vow bring a meal offering from barley valid? Neder ufitcho imohu. So you have here a situation that you have a vow, and its way of out, the petach harata is there. The statement, it is incumbent upon me to bring a meal offering, is a valid vow, while the next term from barley constitute a restriction, as the speaker knows that the meal offering may not be brought from barley. Amar Chizkiah Amani, so the Gemara responds, Chizkiah said, these follow the view of the Mishnah, follow whom? Beit Shammai, the Amar, Tfos Leshon Rishon. So they said that you go by the first statement. As we learn in Mishnah in Tractate Nazir, page 9. Ditnana areni nazir min ha-gorgarot umin ha-levela, bet sheomrim nazir v'lemeno nazir. If he said, I'm hereby a nazir from dried fig and from pressed fig, which is contradictory statement, as fig are not prohibited to a nazir. So Beit Shammai said, he is a full-fledged nazir, because he said Hatzarat Nezirut. Ubeit Hillel Omrim, but let's say the second part of his statement is not discounted, and so therefore he is not Nazir, as he did not accept Nazirut upon himself. Another tirutz, Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu teima, Beit Hillel באומר אילו הייתי יודע שנודרים כך, לא הייתי נודר כך אלא כך. So Rabbi Yochanan hold that even you may say that the Mishnah here is follow the view of Beit Hillel. So here the information is not effective. Why? Because it's like the person said, had I known that one cannot vow in this matter to bring barley for a meal offering, I will not have vowed this matter, but rather in that manner by vowing to bring a wheat instead. I want to digress for a second because it's very much connected to the weekly Torah portion. We just read Parshat Vayetze. And it's a fascinating touch. The very beginning of the Parsha, they said, when Yaakov Avinu left his parents' house and he was in a great trepidation for the state of unknown, after the famous dream, he saw the letter. So the Torah said, Vayidar Yaakov neder leimor. So the Mefarshim, the commentators, ask a question. Usually in the Torah, when we use the term leimor, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, the Almighty spoke to Moses saying, it's referring that Moshe Rabbeinu received the message and had to transfer it to other people. Here, Vayidar Yaakov neder, Jacob make a neder, but it was just himself and the Almighty. So what does the leimor means? So the Mefarshim explains that applied to his descendants, to his future generation, sheyehu nodrin be'et tzara, that at the time of crisis they make a vow, make commitments. So in one hand we said that the person le'olam al tihi ragil ben darim, the person should not get used to make a vow. However, if God forbid a person is stuck in car while he's smoking in the middle of the night and he has no clue how to get out of this, and he made a vow that from now on I'm going to come to shul every day, give certain donation or do certain thing that it's hard for me, that's a positive neder. That's something that the person should commit himself. So that's basically indirectly what we said here, that the person said, Ilu הייתי יודע שנודרים כך, לא הייתי נודר אלא כך. So here, but Hillel agreed that he needs to bring a mincha kshera, because again, in all type of vows, neders, we take the mindset of the person very, very seriously. Now another machloket between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan, that apparently each party takes just the opposite view than before. אמר חזקיה לא שנו, אלא דאמר מנחה מן השעורים, אבל אמר מנחה מן העדשים לא. If he said that mincha is come from the barley, so he can bring meal offering without wheat instead. But if he said it's incumbent upon myself that I bring a mincha, a meal offering from lentil, so the vow is not valid. Mikdei Chizkiah דאמר כמן אמר לשמה תה. So Chizkiah himself, according to whom he said his view. So according to his view, he put the view of Tana Kama in a Mishnah that he is now limited it. כבית שמאי. ובית שמאי, משום תפוס לשון ראשון הוא, מה לי מן הסורים, מה לי מן העדשים. So if you go by the Beit Shammai, what is the difference to me whether he vowed to bring a meal offering from barley or from lentil? Because either way, the principle should require him to bring a meal offering from wheat. So the Gemara said, Hadarbe. So Chizkiah retracted his initial explanation, and he goes, they go and they subscribed according to Rabbi Yochanan. Why Tama Hadarbe? Why he changed his mind? Why he retracted? Amarava matnitin kshitei. You have an issue with the Mishnah. Why? Why you said the meal offering from barley? You said the meal offering from lentil, which is greater novelty. You have to say that because one made a mistake, it's error. So a person can make a mistake with barley. Reasonable that one made a mistake, since one of the individual meal offerings, the meal offering of sotah, comes from barley. But when it's come to lentil, so it's one will not err in thinking that one may bring a meal offering from them. So therefore, one can presume that by saying lentil, he intended to negate his initial statement. ורבי יוחנן אמר אפילו מן העדשים, מקדי רבי יוחנן כמן אמר על ישמעתי. So Rabbi Yochanan said from the lentils, so to whom he is, according to which opinion he said his view. So כבית הלל, said that according to the view of בית הלל. ובית הלל משום דתאיו. Beit Hillel understand that when it's come to a meal offering, take effect because one may reasonably made a mistake. So bisorim tai, barley, so he made a mistake. But when it's come to lentil, ba'adashim lo tai, or not err, but they are feet. So the question is, why then does Rabbi Yochanan hold that the meal offering take effect even if he said lentils? So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan does not think that way. He is in fact hold that when he vows to bring a meal offering from lentil, it is not valid. So לדבריו דחזקיה כאמר להם. So what he said was in response to the statement of Chizkiah. So Rabbi Yochanan is saying to him, At mai ta'ama hadart bach. What's the reason that you retract your explanation of the Mishnah has been follow the view of Beit Shammai? Mishum de lo katane min adashim, because the Mishnah does not teach using the example that one vowed to bring a meal offering from lentil, which will have been a greater novelty. Dilma, so the Gemara challenged this reasoning. He says perhaps the Mishnah is speaking, utilizing the style of lo mibaya kamar. It is not necessary. Lo mibaya min adashim is not necessary to say that one vows to bring meal offering from lentils. The vow takes effect and he brings a meal offering from wheat. So he said because one has reason to say that in fact intended to vow and then retracted his initial statement, and yet the vow takes effect in according to a view of Beit Shammai, that one should attend only to initial statement and his retraction is disregarded. ותפוס לשון ראשון, אלא אפילו מן הסורים נמי, דאיקה למימר מיתה ודקתאי, but even if he vowed to bring a meal offering from barley, where one has reason to say that he made an error, and had he known that the meal offering is not brought from barley, he will not have vow at all. Afilu ache, nevertheless, the vow takes effect, and he must bring a meal offering, because it's the principle, tefos lashon rishon, attend only to the first statement. Page 103b, another restriction when it's come to the ruling of the Tana Kama. So, Amar Zeiri, here is that follow the Mishnah, that one vows to bring a meal offering from barley takes effect. Lo shanu da amar mincha. It's all if he said in his vow meal offering, but not in the Hebrew construct where it is attached to the term from barley, minchat tzorim. Avala amar mincha la, but if he didn't mention mincha, reala minchat tzorim is smichut, la, he doesn't need to bring anything. Because you can't say it first lashon rishon here. And therefore we understand that mitchila intend to bring only barley. Yativ Rav Nachman v'ka'amar le'ashmata. So Rav Nachman gave this shmata, this expression from the Iri. Eitivei Rava le Rav Nachman. Kemach yavi solet. Instead of flour, which is not used for meal offering, should bring a meal offering from fine flour. Lav de amar mincha. So lo. De amar mincha. It's referring where he said, it is incumbent upon me to bring a meal offering of regular flour. Belo shemen ulvona. That's the third din. Yavi shemen ulvona. Oil and frankincense. Ma'ilav de lo amar mincha. He didn't say meal offering. La de amar mincha. No, it's referring to a case where he said, it is incumbent upon me to bring a meal offering without oil or levona. Chatzi saron yavi saron shalem. Ma'ilav de lo amar mincha. Lo de amar mincha. Same malach. So the person said, it is incumbent upon me to bring a meal offering of half-tenth of an ephah. Yachei masefa isaron umechza yavi shnayim. כיוון דאמר מנחה היא חייב לביסרון, כי אמר חצי יסרון לא כלום כאמרו. So the ruling of the Seifa should be relevant. לא צריכה, רב נחמן answer, no, it's necessary. דאמר ראה למנחה חצי יסרון ויסרון. Thank you. So כיוון דאמר מנחה היא חייב לביסרון. Since he said term meal offering, he's obligated to bring a tenth of an ephah for it. כי אמר חצי יסרון ולא כלום כאמר, כי הדר אמר יסרון, מייטה יסרון אחרינה. When he then said the word tenth, he therefore brings another tenth, totaling 2/10. יהיה אחרי רבי שמעון פוטר שלא יתנדב כדרך המתנדבים. So Rava asks, if so, then when the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Shimon deems one exempt from bringing a meal offering in all these cases, as he did not pledge in the manner of those who pledge. Why is this his opinion? Once he said the term meal offering, the vows will be valid. Amay amarava Rabbi Shimon b'shidat Rabbi Yossi amarad amarav b'gmar dvarav adam peace. Said that the conclusion of a person's statement is also accepted. So therefore, even when he said the term meal offering at the beginning of the vow, since at the end he also made declarations that do not apply to a voluntary meal offering, the vow does not take effect. Now we're going to the Mishnah. מתנדב אדם מנחה של 60 איסרון, הוא מביא בכלי אחד. So a person may donate a mincha offering of 60 isaron, and bring it in one vessel. אם אמר הרי עלי 61, מביא 60 בכלי אחד ואחד בכלי אחד. So if he said, I take upon myself to bring 61 isaron, he brings 60 in a vessel and one in another. שכן ציבור מביא ביום טוב הראשון של חג שחל להיות בשבת 61. דיו ליחיד שיהיה פחות מן הציבור אחד. For similarly, the congregation brings 61 on the first day of Sukkot, which falls on Shabbat. So it is sufficient for an individual that he be one less than the congregation. Omer Rabbi Shimon, והלא אלו לפרים ואלו לכבשים ונב לבללים זה עם זה. Rabbi Shimon asks, but earn these for the bulls and these for the lambs, and they may not mix with one another, אלא עד 60 יכולים להיבלל. So rather, until 60s they can be mixed. אמרו לו 60 נבללים ו61 אינם נבללים. They said to him 60 can be mixed and 61 cannot be mixed. So אמר להם כל מידות חכמים הן. He said to them all measurement of our sages are thus. Such as ב40 שאה הוא טובל, ב40 שאה חסר כותו ואינו יכול לטבול בהם. So it come to a mikveh. 40 seah one can immerse. However, in 40 seah less one koto, one cannot immerse, which means that they have a very clear measurement that you cannot even reduce a small, even smallest amount. That's the same, the Ritva explained in our shiur, when it's come to the shiur isa, that you can mix karaui, the Ritva explained Rosh Hashanah, page 13, that it has to be exact shiur chachamim. There is a Bach in Yoreh De'ah, beginning of Reish Aleph, that expand on that. Anyway, Gemara. שאל שאלה למעלה מרבי יהודה ברבי אליי. This is the question I ask above, in front of רבי יהודה בר אליי. מניין לה אומר, הרי הראל 61 מביא 60 בכלי אחד ואחד בכלי אחד. So how do you know that if a person said it's incumbent upon myself to bring a meal offering of 61 tenth, bring 60 tenth in one vessel and 1 tenth in another vessel? פתח רבי יהודה בר אליי, ראש המדברים בכל מקום, and this is something that, if you remember, we talk about it on Gemara on Shabbat 33b, with the whole story of the Romans, etc., the difference between him and other Rabbanim. But anyway, ואמר שכן מצינו בציבור, ציבור מביאים ביום טוב הראשון של חג, שחל להיות בשבת, 61, ודיו להחיד שיפחות מן הציבור אחד. We found in the festival of Sukkot that when it occurred on Shabbat, as we explained earlier, that when 61 tenths of fine flour are brought, so it's sufficient for individual that the maximum amount can bring at once is 1/10 of a far, less than that of the community. אמר לו רבי שמעון, ועלו אלו פרים ואלים ואלו כבשים, same question we ask in the Mishnah, אלו בלילתן עבה ואלו בלילתן רכה, אלו בלילתן שחרית ואלו בלילתן בן 40, ואין אם לליבן עם זה, so not mix with each other, so the communal offering cannot serve as precedent because they never bring 61 tenth in one vessel. אמרו לו, אמור אתה, אמר להם, הרי הוא אומר, וכל מינה בלוה בשמן ואחר איבה, לפסוק סד לוידיקוס chapter 7 verse 10, and every meal offering mixed with oil or dry, shall all the sons of Aaron have one as well as another. אמרה תורה, הווה מנחה שיכולה להיבלל. The Torah has already stated here, bring a meal offering that is capable of being mixed. אמר לו, ב60 נבללים, ב61 נבללים, same question we asked earlier, אמר לו, כל מידת חכמים כנו. That's the measurement of the sages, that's the way it is. Take for example, mikveh in a ritual bath, ב40 שאה הוא טובל, ב40 שאה חסר קורטו, ואינו יכול לטבול, as we explained earlier. If you have קורטו with a small measure, one cannot immerse and be purified. Kabeitza, similarly, food in a volume of the kebeitza, which is the egg bulk, transmits the ritual impurity of food. מטמא ומאכל תאכלים. Kabeitza chaser shom shum, even there's a little bit, the volume of sesame seed missing, אין מטמא טומאה, will not carry ritual impurity. 3 על 3 מטמא מדרס, 3 על 3 חסר נימה אחת, אינו מטמא נדרס. same matter. וכי נבדלי מי הווה, even if 60-10 do not mix with 1 log of oil, what of it? ואתנן אם לא בלל כשר, אמר רבי זרע כל הראוי לבילה אין בילה מעכבת, וכל שאינו ראוי לבילה אין בילה מעכבת בו. אומר רב ביבי, so here the Gemara relates to something that involved with measurement. אמר רבי יהושע בן לוי מעשה בפרידה אחת של בית רבי שמתה. It was a story that incident involving a mule belonging to the house of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi that died. ושיעור המטמא ברביעית, and the sages estimated the amount of blood that emerged as quarter log, which is the minimum measurement for impart ritual impurity. מטיב רבי יצחק בר ביסנא, העיד רבי יהושע בן ביתר על דם לבלות שהוא טהור. ואמר רבי יהושע בן ביתר המעשה והיו נוחרים ארודיות לאריות באיסתרה של מלך. So it was this, obviously it was very different in our time, but it was an event that occurred that they were killing wild donkeys in order to feed the meat to the lions that were in the king's stadium. והיו לרגלים שוקעים עד רחובותיהם בדם ולא אמרו להם דבר. And those ascending to Yerushalayim on the pilgrimage festival were wading up to their knees in the donkey's blood, and the sages did not say anything to them about them becoming impure. Apparently, the blood of an animal dead does not transmit ritual impurity, even though the dead itself does. So, ishtik. So, basically, Rav Bibi display equanimity. He was in a way acquiesced, he did not answer. אמר לרבי זריקה, רבי זריקה said to him, מה יתאמה לו כמעד אמר? What's the reason that Master did not respond to the question? אמר להכי עדר לי. דאמר רבי חנין, והיו חייך תלויים לך מנגד. The Torah said in פרשת תוכחה, in Deuteronomy 28 verse 66, your life shall be hanged out before you. זה הלוקח תבואה משנה לשנה. That applies to a person who's there's 3 cases. The first one, it is poor, that he purchased grain from 1 year to the next because he is not certain that he will find grain to eat in the next year. Next level, ופחד את היומם ולילה. The Pasuk said, and you shall fear night and day. The Maharsha explains that one who purchases grain from Shabbat Eve to another because he does not have the resources to provide himself further. So the Maharsha explained when the Am Yisrael was in the Alad Matam, they have the foundation, otherwise they're up in the air. ולא תאמין בחייך, this is another level of admonition, and you shall have no assurance of your life. זה הסומך על פלטר. This is referring to one who relies on a baker to give him bread because he has no grain on his own. So the Ben Yoeda explains that the person is such a level of trepidation and fear that he doesn't have the money even for the next day. So therefore, he's afraid of poverty in such a level for himself and his families. So as we said, it's his gradation, it's different levels. But it's all a series of that admonition. Page 104, Vahu Gavra, so that person, which means me, Rav Bibi, Al Palter Samich, I relies on baker, so therefore my mind is not sufficiently settled to answer the question properly. Maya ve'ala, so what about this question? Amar Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Morenet ben Isyana ve'oele kishmate. Rabbi Yehuda was the one who made halachic decisions to the house of the Nasi, and therefore instructed them according to the tradition that the blood of a dead animal is impure. The Tanya, some said it none, that is Tosefta Adayot, chapter 2. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, 6 דברים מקולי בשמיים ומחומרי בית הלל. six matters are among the leniencies of Beit Shammai and among the stringency of Beit Hillel. Usually, in most of the machlokot, Beit Shammai is the machmirim, is the stringent. But here is the exception. Some said chamisha. Anyway, but apparently it's shisha. So they said, דם נבלות בית שמאי מטהרים ובית הלל מטמאים. אמר רבי יוסי ברבי יהודה, אף כשטימאו בית הלל לא טימאו אלא בכדי רביעית, הואיל ויכול לקרוש ולעמוד על כזית. So even they make it impure, Beit Hillel, they deem it impure only when it is the quantity of at least a quarter log, since that amount where it congeal could constitute a kezait, an olive bark, which is the minimum amount of the flesh of a dead animal that it's deemed impure. So they, according to the Ravid, in Adayot, chapter 5, since congealed blood is similar to flesh, they say this decree that a quarter log of blood is ritually impure like the flesh of a dead animal. They determined this measure by assessing the quantity of liquid blood needed to produce an kezait of congealed blood.